I'm Starborn. Remember, to be a star, you have to shine your own light, follow your own path, and not be afraid of the darkness, because that's when stars shine brightest. If you've been looking at our website, starborninstitute.org, you would already know that the title of tonight's show is A Lightning Strike. And that is what could be occurring sometime in all of our lives soon, because on Monday there is a very electrifying new moon at 26 degrees of Aries, and Aries does rule new beginnings. But the reason why there could be some surprising thing happen, somewhat like a lightning strike, is because there are going to be 4 planets in Aries on Monday, and so the sun and the new moon at 26 degrees are conjuncting Uranus, that planet of sudden surprising change, at 28 degrees. And so that is really close proximity, and that can mean that the lights, the sun and the moon, are going to sort of set off that volatile Uranus. Uranus rules the future. So there could be some sudden eruption in our lives that could propel us forward into the future. And Uranus does rule anything that goes through the air. So it rules space and aviation, and it rules electricity, and it rules invention and music, and it certainly does rule computers and the internet, and it rules the humanitarian, and it also rules freedom and rebellion. So take your pick. It could be a lightning strike that has something to do with any of those things, but it would tend to sort of propel us into the future. It may be something that involves an announcement. And that is because Mercury is the 4th planet in the sign. It's in early Aries, and the previous day, Sunday, it will go direct. And so that's when we could hear some lightning news as well. But the planets in Aries are not being fortified by any other planet, so they're sort of on their own. There's nothing in Leo, and there's nothing in Sagittarius. And so this new beginning that could be the result of a lightning strike would have a heavy tailwind connected to it. And that tailwind might be full of burdens or obstacles or disappointments or delays. And the reason why is that the 4 planets in Aries are being very harshly squared by 3 extraordinarily powerful planets in Capricorn. And that is because Capricorn rules big business and big government, and it rules leaders at the top. And it rules things that happen, it rules hard work and rewards earned over a long period of time. But right now, that sign is even stronger than the new moon. And the reason why is that Saturn is in Capricorn, and it is the ruler of the sign, and it is conjuncting Mars in Capricorn, and Mars is exalted there, but Mars is the ruler of Aries, where the new moon is. So it's not in very good aspect to that new moon. And then Mars has moved forward enough that it is also conjuncting Pluto in Aries. So these 3 planets are actually conjuncting, and that sort of makes for a triple whammy right now. And on top of that, they are being fortified or backed up by a very powerful Venus in Taurus. And that is why there can be some new beginning that could be initiated, but it would be very strict, or there is the possibility of it being punitive in some way, because Saturn and Mars and Pluto are not the happiest planets. They really mean business. And they're in a steady Earth sign. So all 3 of those planets in Capricorn are squaring the 4 planets in Aries. And so they represent that heavy tailwind that may have some restrictions that go along with some sort of new beginning that is possible or could come out of nowhere. At the same time, that new beginning could even be associated with some sort of long-term debt. And the reason why is that Mars and Pluto are in Capricorn, and they rule Scorpio, and Scorpio does rule debt. And so we'd have to be thinking about the fact that this heavy tailwind could really be a little bit onerous, but at the same time, that a new beginning would really be worth it. And the reason why, even if it's expensive, it could be worth it in the end, is because Venus is in Taurus, and it's the ruler of the sign. Well, it's trining Saturn in Capricorn, which is the ruler of that sign, and the exalted Mars, and Pluto as well. So something, even if it is very expensive and involves long-lasting debt, it is really going to be worth it. So we shouldn't back away from something just because it's got a heavy tailwind in it. Instead, we should roll up our sleeves and just get to work. Because if it's worth it in the end, then we have to think long range, don't we? And in fact, it is the end that we are closer to than even a new beginning. And why is that? Well, the reason why we are closer to the end of something that is like a cycle or an era, something that we have all been involved with for a rather long time. The reason why we can be at the end of something like that, even though the new moon is in Aries and it does represent a new beginning, is because there are 6 planets. In other words, 60% of all the planets in the heavens are in the last 10 degrees of the sign where they're located. And that means they're coming to the end of the sign. And that can involve Venus in Taurus, Jupiter in Scorpio, Pluto in Capricorn, and the Sun and new moon and Uranus in Aries. And because there are so many planets coming to the end of the signs that they're in, it means we are at the end of some sort of cycle or era, even though there can be some lightning strike that can represent a new beginning on our horizon. And so what does this really mean in the end? What it means is that the old days are over. And there could be some people around that could be feeling a lot of agony because of that. And yet, there are others that can awaken to a much brighter future now once they see the light. So this idea of a lightning strike that can propel us into the future is probably for the best in the end, even if it does have a heavy tailwind of additional costs and burdens. It would still be worth it. Okay, what does this mean to all 12 of the sun signs? Well, Aries, for you, what it means is that I think you're going to get a surprise, Aries. I mean, Uranus is the planet of sudden surprising change, and the sun and new moon in your sign on Monday are conjuncting Uranus, and Mercury is in the sign as well. None of those planets are being fortified, and in fact, the reason why you might be getting a lightning strike surprise is because Saturn, Mars, and Pluto in Capricorn are squaring the planets in your sign. And so there's bound to be some unusual event or announcement either happening to you or right around you, Aries. And I hope that you look at it as an opportunity. After all, yours is the sign of the pioneer. And even if you're going to get some sort of a surprise that could have a heavy tailwind connected with it and could represent even something that could be on harsh terms or even be punitive, at the same time, since your sign does rule new beginnings, that is what you excel at. So I don't see how you can lose right now, Aries, because whether the news is good or bad, it's going to promote some sort of new beginning, and so it will really bring out the best in you. So good luck. Okay, what does it mean to a Taurus? Well, Taurus, there can certainly be some sort of lightning strike that is associated with a new beginning in the background of your life. And the reason why is because those 4 planets in Aries are right behind your sun sign. So there's a lot of light in the background of your life. People can see what you have been doing. And so if you are ready to strike out in a totally new direction, I guess you could. But I wish that you'd think about that a little more, Taurus, because actually the emphasis is really, the positive emphasis is really in the earth signs. And that's because Venus is in your sign and it is trining Saturn, Mars, and Pluto in Capricorn. This is the time for you to really think long term. And you could have your mind on something pretty expensive right now, Taurus. Or you could be wanting to make more money, you know, improve your lifestyle or the lifestyle of your loved ones. And your sign is the sign of the good provider. So there's that possibility. And so if you were going to sort of take a chance or risk something right now, I urge you not to. In fact, this is not a good time for anybody to gamble. And the reason why is even if there are a lot of planets in the background of your life sort of illuminating some plan that you've been working on sort of quietly, at the same time, there's nothing fortifying that new moon. And that means it could be sort of up one day and down the next. And I don't think that you should take a risk on anything right now, Taurus. And that is because you could be better off where you are. And particularly if you think a little bit more about the kind of gains you could make long term, because you really could. And even if something is expensive right now, it would be worth it as long as it had long-term value. So I hope you think in that direction and you go in that direction, because that'll pay off. Okay, what does it mean to a Gemini? Well, Gemini, there aren't any planets in the air sign, so this isn't a time for talking, even if there could be some lightning strike announcement around. In fact, it might take our breath away instead, and we'd all have to sort of sit there and see what would happen next. But Gemini, I can guarantee if there is a lightning strike, you are going to benefit. And the reason why is those 4 planets in Aries, Mercury, your own ruler, the Sun, Moon, and Uranus are all sextiling your Sun, and a sextile represents opportunities. So whether a lightning strike is good or bad, and whether it has a heavy tailwind with it or not, you are going to benefit. And so it would give you an opportunity, or if it happens to somebody else, you could take advantage of some sort of opportunity, depending on what happens with them. And so I see you as benefiting. The only planet that is harshly aspecting your sun sign is Neptune in Pisces, which is squaring your sun sign. So you still have to test people before you believe them. But at the same time, you could really have a great opportunity, and it may have something to do with something that is expensive, because Venus is in Taurus right behind your sun sign, which is a sort of a nice place to have it. Okay, what does it mean to a Cancer? Well, Cancer, this is a time when I think that you really need to just lay low and bide your time and wait and see what happens. And the reason why I urge you to be cautious and careful is because the new moon on Monday with the Sun, new moon, Uranus, and Mercury in Aries are all squaring your Sun. That's 4 planets. And they are being harshly aspected by 3 planets in Capricorn, and those are the 3 that are opposing your sun sign. You are going to feel some sort of lightning strike around you, Cancer. I'm not so sure it will happen to you, but it could happen to an organization that you work for, or it could involve some policy change in a government organization, or it could involve some long-range plan of yours, and that is because the 3 planets in Capricorn, which are even more powerful now because they're all in conjunction with each other, are opposing your sun sign. And so whether a lightning strike happens to somebody else and you have to react to it, or whether there is some serious adjustment you will have to make in the future, that's why I say, you know, there is something that is going to surprise you or sort of knock you off balance a little bit, and it is coming up, Cancer. But I advise you to sit back and watch and wait. And the reason why is that regardless of what happens this spring, there is a fantastic solar eclipse in your sign in July. It's the best eclipse of the whole year. And that is when you will be able to really make a positive move. That is why I caution you not to do anything, or not to react too much to what happens right now. Just wait and see, and be very cautious instead. What does it mean to a Leo? Well, Leo, this is a time when you could get some lightning strike news or some sort of announcement that could come out of nowhere. And you know that you could be looking on that with great anticipation. And that is because the Sun, New Moon, Mercury, and Uranus in Aries are all trining your sun sign, Leo, which can be great for you. So I think that if there isn't some new beginning that you are anticipating, somebody else is. And it could just sort of come out of nowhere, and it could draw you into the future, which would be great. But remember, I said it's going to have a heavy tailwind, and that's because it is being so harshly squared by Saturn, Mars, and Pluto in Capricorn. And so I think that whether it happens to you or to somebody else, I think you will be involved in one way or another, Leo. And what you have to do is separate your reaction from financial matters. And the reason why is that Venus in Taurus, which is well backed up by the planets in Capricorn, is squaring your sun harshly. And Jupiter in Scorpio, which is well backed up by a trine from Neptune in Pisces, is also squaring your sun. And so you have to only concentrate on what adds up. In other words, keep looking at your budget, Leo, and nothing else, because you've got to be able to afford something. And if you are dependent upon some sort of an income, you really need to ensure that you keep the income, because there are bills to pay. And that comes before any other kind of news or activity. So this is not a good time for you to travel or to react too quickly to something without counting the cost first. Okay, what does it mean to a Virgo? Well, Virgo, this is an absolutely excellent time for you. And it's not because of the new moon. In fact, the new moon on Monday in Aries is 150 degrees away from your sun sign, or what we call in conjunct. So a lightning strike may not hit you in any way, even though Mercury, your own ruler, is in Aries at that time. So there could be some sort of announcement around you, Virgo, but perhaps not happening directly to you. It's still a wonderful time for you, though, an amazingly wonderful time, because Venus in Taurus is trining your sun. That means good investment news. And Saturn, Mars, and Pluto in Capricorn are also trining your sun. Those are the 4 strongest planets in the heavens right now. And because there are 6 planets in so close to the end of their sign, indicating that we are at the end of a cycle or end of an era, then I think that even if there is some lightning strike that describes some sort of new beginning that has a heavy tailwind connected to it, even with all of that, what will gradually we will all come to realize is how close we are to the end of an era or to a cycle. And I think that you would see that very clearly, Virgo, because you're going to be involved in a lot of hard work or demands from people in high places that are counting on you to do your best. And you certainly will, Virgo. I think you're going to be very busy, and I can guarantee you it will be very rewarding. Congratulations. Okay, what does it mean to a Libra? Well, Libra, this is a time when, just like Cancer, you too need to be very cautious. And that's because there are no planets in any of the air signs, okay? So this isn't a time for talking or kibitzing or gossiping or anything else. And on top of that, the 4 planets in Aries, the Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Uranus, are all opposing your sun sign. And the heavy-duty planets, Saturn, Mars, and Pluto in Capricorn, are squaring your sun sign. That is just too much for you to overcome, Libra. That is why I advise you to step back and don't overreact. For one thing, the 4 planets in Aries that are opposing your sun sign could indicate that somebody else is going to make a lightning change, and it could catch you by surprise. And so you need to try not to overreact to that. And then there can be some disappointment, delay, obstacles, or even higher costs connected to some sort of burden that has to do with a new beginning, and you would have to shoulder that responsibility. But believe me, in the end, something, even if it is expensive, will be worthwhile, even if it involves some sort of a longer lasting debt. It's just that I don't think that this is a good time for you to initiate something, Libra. Wait and see what other people do first. And that way it will give you time to sort of catch your breath and make your own plans carefully. And that's what you need to do. This is not a good time for you to move too quickly, because I think you would regret it. Okay, what does it mean to a Scorpio? Well, Scorpio, this is a time when I think that you can be unafraid of any kind of a tailwind that could represent a burden or some sort of obstacle or even longer term debt. And the reason why you could be somewhat unafraid of that and willing to go ahead with a new beginning is because Saturn, Mars, and Pluto in Capricorn are sextiling your sun sign, and Jupiter is in your sun sign. Well, Mars and Pluto are your own rulers. They are conjuncting each other right now. This, since your sign is a fixed financial sign, this could have something to do with higher financial costs, but they wouldn't necessarily hurt you, Scorpio. The other thing your sign rules is war. And this is a time when we could be heading towards something rather dangerous. But once again, it wouldn't necessarily hurt you. It would be something that you may want to help with instead, Scorpio, depending on how much you know from your sources behind the scenes. And you could know a lot more than people think, Scorpio, because Neptune in Pisces is trining your sun. So I think that this is a time when you may be called on to lend a helping hand in either a dangerous situation or involving something that is really hard work, sort of a heavy lift. But I don't think you would mind at all. And so this could bring out the best in you as well, Scorpio. You should still keep your contacts behind the scenes and wait and see what they have to say as well, so that you can be well informed. Okay, what does it mean to a Sagittarian? Well, Sagittarius, this is a time when I think that it's all systems go for you, because the 4 planets under the new moon in Aries on Monday are all trining your sun sign. So you may get some sort of positive feedback that just comes out of nowhere that involves a new beginning. And I think that you could be all ready to sort of jump into it, Sagittarius. But you have to really be careful about the tailwind that can be involved in a new beginning. In other words, what are the burdens connected with it? What are the higher costs? What is the possibility of going into debt? How much is it really going to be worth in the long run? I think it'll be worth a lot in the long run, but it is going to take a mammoth amount of effort and extra money to accomplish. Are you ready for that, Sagittarius? That's why I think that you should, carefully contemplate a new beginning, but you could get some good news about it as well. Okay, what does it mean to a Capricorn? Well, Capricorn, you're the person that likes to go over all the details and really get something mapped out and well planned before you even start it. But that new moon on Monday is in Aries, and the 4 planets in Aries do square your sun. So I think you're going to get some lightning fast announcement about something, and you will have to do something about it, Capricorn, but don't worry. It could involve something that had been pending for a while, and then suddenly there it is. Well, what would you do about it? Well, you might have to work a little bit extra hard. You might be really busy. You might have to do extra things, and it might cost more money, but it still can be really worth your while, Capricorn. And Venus in Taurus is trining 3 very powerful planets in your sign. So you're not going to be defeated, Capricorn, not right now anyway. But I think that you may have to really sort of go into action now a lot more quickly than you would prefer. But that is because if something is coming at you and it is something that you are positive about, then you really should gear up for it and just go for it, because nothing is going to be able to stop you. So I wish you the best of luck. Okay, what does it mean to an Aquarian? Well, Aquarius, there aren't any planets in the air signs, but it is your ruler that is responsible for the possibility of a lightning strike coming up under the new moon in Aries on Monday. And that's because the sun and the moon are conjuncting Uranus, which is your ruler. And all 4 planets in Aries sextile your sun. So just like Gemini, you could take advantage of some lightning strike announcement or something that happens very quickly that can just erupt and lead us into the future. You would love that, Aquarius. The thing you wouldn't love is how much it would cost. And that is because Jupiter in Scorpio is squaring your sun, which means you already are looking at some debts or loans that you have to pay off. And Venus in Taurus is squaring your sun, which means you could have your eye on something that's a little more expensive than you could afford. So you're already involved in some sort of financial negotiations of some sort, and there could be some sudden lightning strike announcement or event, and it would have a heavy tailwind connected to it. So that is why, you know, even if something does happen real quick in your life, Aquarius, slow down a little bit if you can. And just like Leo, you need to count the cost first before you react to it. Okay, what does it mean to a Pisces? Well, Pisces, this is a time when I think you could really see the opportunity for some sort of new beginning, and you could probably see some lightning strike happening right in front of you. And that's because the 4 planets in Aries are right ahead of your sun sign. And so there could be something that you could almost jump into, Pisces. But should you? Because remember, I told you the 4 planets in Aries are being overwhelmed by the power of the 3 planets in Capricorn, including Aries ruler Mars, that are all squaring those planets in Aries. And so there can be some pretty heavy lifting or hard work connected to some sort of new beginning. But in the end, even if it requires some long-lasting debt, it can be worth it. It's just that, you know, it is always better to have the money in your hand first, Pisces, before you start something new. So if you want to jump into something, I guess you could, but it would be better if you were a little more well prepared financially before you did that. So if you are well prepared, I think this is a time when you might just go ahead and zoom forward. Good luck. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, you can see the show, you can read our blog and hear our podcast on our website, starborninstitute.org. Bye.